All right, friends, welcome back to No Putts Given. And today we've got a fun one because we're breaking down golfers' egos and why they make a difference in the golf equipment game. Everybody, let's get it.
No Putts Given is powered by MyGolfSpy, the most extensive reviews in golf. Before you buy, MyGolfSpy. 9 million readers do it every year. Check us out.
I'm sorry, I'm so distracted right now tweeting out who wore it better that I didn't even hear the other.
Tony, I must ask you a question.
Oh boy.
Oh my God.
Why?
Because Brooks Koepka.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sure everybody saw that because it was all over the Twitterverse. How do you think yours compares?
It's pretty solid. I mean, my daughter loves it. My wife hates it, which tells me I did it right. So,
I wanna do that, but I don't think I would get away with it.
Again, I know your wife and she'd be pissed.
I don't think I'm gonna have to exit out of the show this week. I can't look at his face the whole show.
Oh, the people listening on audio are gonna be so annoyed if they can't see what we're talking about.
All right, well, now that we've gotten over Tony's new look, I think it's the perfect week to talk about golfers' egos because for some reason that mustache just says like vanity to me. But Chris, I have a get to know you question.
Ooh, all right.
What loft do you play on your driver?
What loft do I play on my driver? 9 degrees. 9.0.
Okay, now, is that what it actually is or is that what it says on the driver?
No idea. I mean, that's what it says on the driver, but you know, it could be 10 degrees, could be 11, could be 8.5. I don't know.
Harry, what about you?
Mine is 8.5, and it's measured at 8.3.
Okay, so pretty close. Adam?
Yeah, I don't play golf really anymore. No, I'm just kidding.
Fair.
Mine's a 9.5.
Okay, so again, is that what it actually is or is that what it says?
Yeah, actually mine's at a 9.4, I think they say on the front of it. So pretty close.
Tony, do you know why I'm asking these questions?
I just get phone calls middle of the day telling me what we're going to talk about, so I've got a hunch.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because there's a concept out there of vanity lofts, and I didn't know this prior to this topic, but I was informed a little bit as we were prepping for the show that vanity lofts are a thing where it'll say one thing on your driver, but you're actually playing a completely different loft. Adam, why do you think this happens?
I mean, it started years and years ago, and it started for a good reason. It sounds like a dirty little secret from the industry, but really, ultimately, it was golfers' egos. Before I owned MyGolfSpy, I was kind of on a different side of the business where you had to do fittings, and the majority of golfers that came in thought they needed some loft and needed a different one. So, for example, the majority of lofts back then were actually lower 7.5 to let's say 9 for most men. Women played 11, 12, 14, some even 16. So it really came down to an ego thing where guys didn't want to be playing lofts that were similar to women's drivers, even if they really needed it. And 20 years ago, 10, 12, 14 degree drivers were often recommended for golfers. That's not the case anymore. But at the time, it was definitely more necessary prior to changes in a lot of different things like angles of attack and center of gravity change positions and golf ball design and things like that. But at the beginning, it was all about ego. And if a golfer think they needed a 9, but a 10 performed better for them, the golf industry decided for them, we're gonna make it a 10, even if you think it's a 9.
So they deliberately misled golfers to make them think that they were playing the right thing and that they were maybe better than they were?
Well, they helped golfers, really. I mean, they kind of helped golfers get out over themselves. So if you've got, again, the ego thing, right? Like I play a 9-degree driver and the launch conditions produced suggest that you should be in a 10.5. Well, you know, if you know that a guy who should be in a 10.5 is always or more often than not going to buy a 9-degree, how do you solve that problem so that you get performance, right? Because you don't want a case where somebody buys the wrong thing and then assumes that your product was no good, right? So you have to get in a situation where you sort of find a way for the golfer to be happy with the performance, even if the numbers don't necessarily match.
How prevalent is this?
It's kind of interesting what's happened. So several years ago, what was commonplace was, most drivers were a degree and a half weaker than was stated. So, it wasn't unusual, for example, for a 9.5 degree driver to be measured at 10.5 and sometimes 11. Over time, that's kind of, I don't want to say that that's not the case anymore, because what we find now is that 10.5 degree drivers tend to be, the actual loft tends to be a bit higher, 11 and 11.5, and that's still relatively common. What's kind of interesting is as driver design has evolved, like Adam touched on, with the center of gravity being pushed farther back and down in the club, all these things that inherently produce higher launch angles. In lower lofts especially, you're starting to see it move the other way, where, for example, if I ask, manufacturer, all right, this is your 9, what is the actual loft? And you dig a little deeper and they're like, well, it's actually closer to 8.5 now because of all the stuff that happens with that lower and farther back CG, where you get more dynamic loft, you get higher launch. And so if the guy who needed a 9 and had played a 9 that was a true 9 bought a club that was actually a 9 with those kind of enhanced design characteristics, then it would fly too high, spin too much. So you're seeing it go the other way, where the lofts are actually becoming a bit stronger in some cases than what's stamped on the club.
And what you find is that lower lofts often provide more energy transfer at impact as well, and provide better ball speed for lower swing speeds, which is some of the reasons why I think we saw some weird things in our data years ago, where we saw these tour style drivers that were lower lofted really performing best for slower swing speeds. And at the time, people would say, oh, that's crazy. But it's one of those things we're starting to see. Also, angles of attack have changed significantly. So 20 years ago, almost no golfers had positive angles of attack. And what that means is you're swinging up when you contact the ball. And back then, almost everybody was negative. Slower swing speed now, a lot of people that get on a TrackMan or a Foresight quickly see that one of the quickest ways to get gains for distance is positive angles of attack, which create, changes in dynamic loft. So even if you have a lower stated loft, you're actually producing more loft anyway. So there's less of a need for vanity lofts now than there was before. But it was a pretty interesting little secret that really no one ever talked about in the industry. And I think the only time when you do research on Google for vanity lofts in golf, we're the only people that really pop up. There just really wasn't anybody talking about it.
Is that because they wanted to protect the ego bubble? Nobody wanted to admit that it was happening, so then they didn't have to admit that that's not the actual loft that they play?
Well, I think it's partially confusion too, right? Mm-hmm. Like the more information you throw at consumers, like they're already confused enough, right? And so we're trying to figure out how do you make some of these things more simple? We throw around terms like stamped loft and dynamic loft and angles of attack, etc. Like, how do we make that just super simple for a golfer to say, okay, on the driver it says 9 degrees. All right, if I take this 9 degree driver, but I deliver it at 11 degrees, what am I actually doing, and how does that, how or why does that actually matter? Then you say, but that's actually not a 9 degree driver; it's actually 10.5. And so now it's like, oh man, we got another variable to deal with. Now I'm doing, you said there'd be no math, and now I got to do math. And it's like, how am I supposed to figure that out? So what do I need? Now we're getting to, right, like launch angles, spin rates.
Well, my question is this. Do you think like there was like this secret meeting at the PGA show one year and everybody sat around and all the golf companies finally got together and were like, man, all these guys think they need extra stiff shafts, 6.5 degree lofts, like Ace, from fried eggs, right?
Eggs, one honey.
Exactly. And do you think they all got together and did this? Because it is kind of interesting that almost all of them did it. Do you think there was any communication amongst them about it?
I'm sure somebody figured it out. Somebody did it first, and then everybody else was like, onto something here.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if you had all clubs and you didn't have anything stamped on the bottom of your club? And you just
never
went
know
off.
what to take out of your bag.
Well, you would.
Hey, give me the
You would if you just looked at your stats for carry and like your knockdown carry shots, what the yardage that went to. But when I came to MyGolfSpy, I was very much egotistical, and I wanted, if my buddy hit 7-iron, I was going to hit an 8-iron, just because that was me. But then coming in here, I quickly found out that everything that is stamped on the bottom of the club is irrelevant. I look at spin rates.
Well, no matter what the number is, Harry, 9, 12, 14, 18, your 7-irons, whatever it is, right? The loft, to some degree, shouldn't matter. It really should just be about the numbers that it produces for you,
and
right?
And that's what I'm looking at. Like, I'm looking at spin rates, launch angles, descent angles, all of these things that I'm trying to optimize my potential in my driver and my irons. I'm trying to find that, and I don't care if it says 13 degrees of loft or 7 degrees of loft. Whatever performs best for me is what I'm going to play.
I think you're still in the minority, but I do wonder, like 10 years from now, what that will look like, because really at some point it only becomes about the fitter needing to have that number to know where to start, like for a starting point. But after that, once golfers start to realize that it's just whatever numbers it produces for you, whether or not lofts will even not only not need vanity lofts, but not even need to be really shown in a prominent way on the bottom of clubs.
You remember, like, when Slider came out, right? TaylorMade had some issues with guys not lofting up appropriately, and so there just wasn't enough loft on that club for guys, at least if they were matching what I played to the new club. And so when the R15 came out, the first run of them, they overcooked the lofts. So I remember we got our samples, and the PR guy called me at the time. He's like, "Hey man," he's like, "take photos of it, do what you need to do, but please don't push any or publish any data or any results." I'm like, "Why? What's up?" He's like, the first batch all came in at close to 12 degrees, the 9.5. So, it's one of those things where everybody's trying to find the right number, and they knew that kind of with that configuration and what they learned from the SLDR, they had to go a little bit weaker in the loft up for you, if you will. But the early ones, they overcooked it a little bit. So
at least they listened to their own advice though and lofted up. I made me think of the wedges too on the other end. Like, okay, what's relevant? Like, what numbers are relevant? And very prominent wedge person in the industry, long time. Everybody recognized the name. Basically said, I stamp on the club the bounce that players want to see, but I build in the bounce that players need. And the same kind of thing, right? Where people think, do I need a high bounce? Ooh, low bounce is really sexy, right? Well, you probably actually need more bounce. A lot of people need more bounce on their wedges than maybe they inherently think that they do. And so there's another little element in there.
So are you telling me there's vanity bounce?
I'm telling you there's vanity bounce in wedges. I'm telling you, people want low lofted drivers, low bounce wedges because it's sexy, but the reality is you probably need more bounce on your wedges than you're currently playing.
Just about anything with a degree symbol at the end of it has been vanity one way or the other, or both over the years.
I just did a Titleist University seminar on my laptop yesterday, and there were some really interesting numbers for descent angles if you want a low launch and a penetrating ball flight. So, for instance, players that want to have a higher ball flight need to be looking between 37 and 42 degrees of descent angle, where you can get like a good optimal rollout plus XYZ. And for those who want like a mid to low ball flight, 30 to 37 degrees of land. And I thought that was really interesting because now when I'm looking at my own numbers, I'm going to be keeping those in mind and trying to get that extra 3 or 4 yards of roll that I potentially need on a certain course.
You hit it 330 yards and you potentially need an extra 3.
Ego, Tony, the ego.
It's the ego. But I thought that was really interesting. And then they did it for hybrids as well. So I learned a lot from just that one little tidbit from Titleist going over the university.
Yeah, I mean, all those numbers, as golfers get more accustomed to getting fittings, whether it be drivers, which would be what they're getting fit for most now, and then they start to get fit more for wedges and putters or whatever, the more accustomed they start getting to these numbers, the more comfortable they are soaking that information in, and then being able to apply it on the golf course, right? And it's going to take time, but it's all valuable, and sometimes it can be overload, but it just depends on where you are on that education level and how you can apply it onto the course. But one interesting question that this brings up, I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question, I guess, and is, why do golfers care so much about driver loft and not what's on their irons?
I mean, you think, like, I think some think they care about what's on their irons, right? We hear it all the time when a new, especially in the game improvement space or the player's distance space, where these so-called jacked irons come out, and readers flip out about the lofts, right? Titleist T200, for example, I believe that's a 43-degree pitching wedge in what's supposed to be a player's profile, right? So people lose their minds a little bit about that stuff without actual regard to, all right, I understand that this is a number and it has a meaning, but what does the ball flight really look like? And that's ultimately
the
what I think.
thing.
Right? Yeah. So,
well, important thing to who, right? I mean, most guys or golfers they care about the driver loft because that's the big dog, right? That's the thing that it's their macho, it's their ego. You've met Matt Meadows, Harry.
Mm-hmm.
He used to hit it farther than me, and then one day he didn't. And since that day, 35 years ago, he's been trying to, pound it past me, and they've just sprayed all in the woods, right? And it's just amazing to me that he will watch his score just go up by 8 strokes around by trying to hit it farther off of one shot. And then you get to the irons, and it's all about precision, right? So when it comes to that driver, they care about that number because it means something about distance and their strength and manhood. But when it comes to the irons, I don't care what number's on there as long as it goes farther than it did last year when I pull my 7-iron out. And that's what the industry's giving them, right? They're giving them stronger and stronger lofts every year, and those 7-irons are going farther and farther. What is what was the question, Tony? How low do you think the loft's going to be on like a 4-iron? You're like 0?
Like negative? Well, I mean, and that's the other part that it confuses a little bit is as manufacturers continue to do that, there are some people that's really, really good for. So you have some people that add a lot of loft at impact, right? And so, Tony, we've talked about this too, like with Titleist, with the stronger lofted version where it's like another 2 degrees strengthened. That may make a lot of sense for a certain player, right? But, like Tiger plays traditional lofts, like 47, 48 degrees in his pitching wedge. But at impact, you got to wonder how much he de-lofts it, right? So he's hitting a pitching wedge with maybe the same effective loft that I'm hitting an 8-iron because I scoop at it, right? How could we explain that to consumers, the difference between static loft and dynamic loft? How could we present that to golfers in a way that is like clear and makes sense and they go, oh.
I mean, isn't it as simple as this? When you lay the club down, that's the static loft. When you hit the ball at impact, that's the dynamic loft, right?
Yeah, so static loft, whatever this measures, and dynamic loft is maybe you hit down on it, maybe you scoop up,
Tiger be hitting a 46-degree pitching wedge, but when he's hitting it in a dynamic loft is saying 42, you've actually turned that into, a 9-iron.
Well, think about it like this. You go to the range any day of the week, right? The majority of golfers flip at impact, right? That's how most golfers deal. Exactly.
Guilty.
When you flip at impact, you're adding dynamic loft to the club, correct? So that's another reason to give golfers lower lofts nowadays too, because not only are they angle of attacking up, but a lot of them are adding more dynamic loft by flipping at impact.
It's a delicate balance, though. You start to think about it, right? You tend to see the really strong lofted stuff in the game improvement space a lot of time, and into the super game improvement space. Harry and I, as we planned out the iron testing earlier this week, kind of looking at the lofts, and we're like, my God,
Yeah, I've got those ones here. I mean, 3.75 degrees of difference in the 7-iron loft in the game improvement.
And the thing is, right, there's a strong element of dynamic loft that is dependent on head speed. And so, when you are producing these jacked lofts for slower swing speed players, you don't necessarily get the intended or at least the desired result every time. I mean, those guys are going to get more distance still because it's coming off low and it's not spinning much. But I mean, some guys we see just I mean, we look at the numbers in our tests every year. I mean, it's clear that especially on the lower end of the swing speed spectrum, it's very difficult for the guys to overcome the static lofts of some of these jacked irons. So
well, then they end up with four. It's like you ask them in the bag, like, hey, what club do you hit 150 yards? And they're like, all of them. Like they all go 150 yards, and then some roll out to 160, some roll out to 180, some roll out to 200, and it's like that's an unfortunate result, right, for guys with slower swing speeds that maybe actually need something other than what the industry's given them.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I tend to go about fittings a little bit differently. I like to do a bag check before you even swing, right? So you go through and you do an interview with the actual golfer. And you go through their bag and you go through every club and see what they like and don't like about every club and problems they have. And, one thing that you see over and over again is that there might be 3 irons in their bag that are just clean, look like brand new. And you're like, what's the deal with these? And they go, I hit them all the same distance as that one below it. And you're like, interesting, that's unfortunate, right? But that's part of the reality of kind of like what you're talking about there, Chris. And, if that's the case, either fix that problem or get those out and add some other clubs in there, right?
Yeah, I got a 4-iron, a 5-iron, and then 2 extra alignment sticks called a 2-iron and a 3-iron. So now what do I do with those?
I go back to when we did 2-3 years ago, right, when the first one length irons came out. We did the one length test and kind of got to compare one length to how guys were hitting their own clubs, and it was crazy to see like some guys had like a 5.5 yard gap between their 5 and their 6, or maybe it was like between their 5 and their 7 iron even. And you're like, what is this? Why, something needs to be tweaked here, because this is not a functional use of the space in your bag. So yeah, I think that's another thing where guys just go, all right, I need one of these just incrementally 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up. And, sometimes when you look at the gapping, you're like, what, maybe we need to skip one of these and give you a little something farther down in the bag.
Throw a 64, 65 degree wedge in there. You'll love that.
I relate it a lot to, it's not a perfect analogy, but, if you are a cabinet builder versus a weekend warrior with, messing around with tools, generally speaking, somebody that spends as much time as most golfers do playing the game have really good tools and know exactly how they work, right? And in golf, it just seems to be a little bit different. People will play 30, 40 years, and if you look at all the issues going on in their bag, it's no shock or surprise that they're shooting 90 still. There are so many things that they're in their bag making the game so difficult for them to really score well. It's pretty eye-opening. And it starts with little stuff like that, just going through the bag one club by the next and saying, what's up with this club? And you find that there's, generally speaking, 50, 60% of the clubs that aren't really working for them. And I look at those like tools. If I'm a cabinet maker and that's my career, I can't have 50 or 60% of my tools, making my cabinets not as nice when I go to sell them, right?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too, because we're always saying, hey, go get fit, go get fit, go get fit. And, if you do that, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff because the fitter takes care of it for you. But even if you don't want to buy new clubs, go in for a checkup and just have a gap analysis done, right? Where you just hit a handful of shots with each of your clubs and see how far they're actually going. That'll give you a good idea if, something just needs to be bent or if it's time to replace a club with a different club and really make sure that you're covering the range of distance you need to cover and you don't have any redundant clubs in your bag.
But I think that's a great point, Tony, but one issue I see with that is where that gap analysis gets done. If it gets done indoor and not on the course, a lot of times why I think you see those 3 clubs all being similar distances is because there's that one club that they love, right? That they do de-loft it, right? And that's their baby. They play it over and over and over. But then they go from that 7 that they love to the 5, and they're in a more traditional stance. They don't swing it the same. So really the lofts actually end up being very similar, but they're not as confident with that 5 as they were with the 7, right? So 2 different swings, okay, produce almost similar distances. But when people get fit indoors, no different than with putter fitting or gap analysis. I don't think they swing the same indoors as in like a game mode golf where they're like, all right, here's my comfy club, right? And they get in this really comfortable position and swing like super confidently. Indoors, you just don't see that. So I don't know if you're going to get a perfect gap analysis with indoor gap testing. You follow what I'm saying?
There is a psychological element at play with indoor for sure, and I've seen it over the years. A lot of it is golfer dependent, and again, because a lot of the guys that I've fit over the years are guys that I play with. So, I kind of see both sides of that. And it's interesting. There are guys that come in and what they do indoors is absolutely indistinguishable from what they do outdoors. And then there are other guys where like just something psychologically, a switch gets flipped. Like there's this one guy, Mike Wormley, kills the ball outdoors. Absolutely kills the ball, hits it. Yeah, he's a big guy. He can motor it, probably push it out 280 when he's really swinging well and getting a hold of it. You put that same guy in a hitting bay with a driver, and it's a 220-yard slice every time, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to kind of right him because it's the psychology of the wall in the corner or whatever it is. And that, I mean, it happens. It absolutely happens, and that's a challenge.
Yeah, and not to get too far off topic, but putter fitting I think is the worst indoors because you watch guys on like Quintex, right, or these devices that track them. Their putting stroke is so different than their real stroke. Their asshole tightens up so tight that they want to hit that perfect stroke. Like, you remember when they used to put that ping app on us and you try to get that professional stroke?
Better, like that's if I want to putt well, that's why I'm like, stick this thing on. Like I'm not trying to make it. I'm just trying to impress the machine.
Yes, exactly. That's the exact point. And here's how I know it's wrong. When we finished testing there, they said, Adam, you have the second best, most consistent putting stroke we have ever seen. That is 100% false. That is not possible. And anyway, indoor, outdoor is a little bit different. I do think you should be gap tested, but I do think you should do it, which once again, who's going to have this opportunity, right? Where you get your coach out on the course playing around with you
with
and
a
gap
monitor.
Test you with a launch monitor, gap test you during a round of golf, but that's the way it should be done.
So we're free to talk about it, I think. So Foresight has a new electric trolley, right? Powered push cart that's starting to ship this week. And when I was talking to Rick about it over there, I was like, it's got a launch monitor in it? Is it built in? Because that's really like the perfect solution, right? The launch monitor in your push cart. But no, it's unfortunately just a push cart for now. But I think like you want to talk about, well, how do you get it done? Like that's perfect world, absolute dream scenario is this mobile launch monitor that's there with you for every shot on the golf course.
But then you kind of have that Arcos.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. Like you look in that Arcos interface. That's another way, right? That's actually a pretty solid way to see. All right, what are my real gaps on a golf course? You look at that in Arcos, and talking to Mike Yagley at Cobra over the years, typically what they see is
name dropper.
That's right, Yags. You see, they're kind of stepping up, but almost invariably, and typically in the long irons, you see two clubs where the distance is almost the same, and that is the typical pattern for someone who hasn't really looked at it.
Well, and I think too that I was talking with Adam Beach earlier around some of these topics, and I actually was chatting with ShotScope, Gavin Deere, one of the guys over there, and similar things that they're working on is being able to decouple these different pieces of information and give specific user feedback on different parts of their bag. So we're working on some stuff around irons, and Tony and I are working on some stuff with graphite shafts and steel shafts, and what they have capability of doing and decoupling that data is really, really interesting for exactly this type of problem. Because other than, having a launch monitor out there with you or whatever, it's kind of tough, right? I mean, you might be able to laser to a pin. You go out on an early evening, not a lot of people out. You drop down 3 balls and hit your 9-iron, say 3 different times. Okay, great. And then you drop another 2-3 balls, hit your 8-iron, and maybe you have them marked or whatever the case.
Pace it off.
Pace it off. I mean, that's, how else do you do that in a realistic scenario where you're trying to hit to a target or whatever the case is, other than, some type of technology infused, monitoring option, or label the balls. I mean, Tony, you're probably pretty good at that at this point. And this one has 2 green dots. This one has 3 green dots.
That's a skill that does not translate.
Yeah, but then here's another thing that is tough is where does the ego take off here? Because if I hit one in the center of a club face and it goes 180, and then I hit one off the toe in the heel and it goes 170, guess what I'm taking for my actual number for that club? I'm taking a 180.
Nobody in Vegas remembers how much they lost. They only remember how much they won.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So people's ego is still going to be like, all right, well, consistently I strike it 72 yards. No, I'm not playing that. I'm playing for a center strike 180.
Look, dude, we did a study. I don't know how many years ago was it, Tony, when we did the one where how far golfers think they hit the ball versus how far they actually hit the ball. I don't know if you remember that, but I mean, with the driver, I think it was, don't quote me on this, but it was like 23.1 yards difference from what people said they hit it to compared to how far they hit it.
Oh, I see it here. I see it here in testing, because when we get new testers in, I said, so all right, just give me a number on like how far do you think you hit your driver and your irons, and it's all about 250. And they go up and they hit theirs, and I'm looking, I'm like, you might just be a little bit off there. You're hitting it at 190.
You know what they always say, Harry? They're like, I don't think this thing's accurate, man.
Yeah.
The first year, we tested with the Foresight, the GC2. The first year we had it, we had one of our senior testers come in, and the balls are rolling out 203, 205, and he looks at me after, basically we're about 6 clubs and 3 days deep. He's like, this thing doesn't work. It's not accurate. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I hit it 220, 225 all day long outside. I'm like, all right, noted. And then, brought in another tester, just super consistent. I joke like he's as close to we have as a robot up here. And he was testing 4-irons. I'm like, let's see, how far do you hit your 4-iron? He's like, $180. First swing, 180. Second one, 181. Third one, 179. Fourth one, 180. I'm like, I feel like the equipment's fine. I don't know.
I think this is an interesting discussion. Where else do you guys think that golfers' egos come to play the most?
Oh my God, their score.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, man, if they should literally get rid of erasers on the pencils, because I don't know many golfers that I play with that what they write down as their actual score was their actual score.
Really? They just flat out cheat.
Well, here's another thing: is they do it in their apparel. They do it in like shoes is a great example. They'll use a shoe that they're like, I love this looking shoe. It's just a great looking shoe, but performance-wise, it's one of the worst ones.
Are you? Was that a transition right there?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe just a little one. Yeah.
I have a feeling there's something below that we can't see that people might want to.
Yeah. Well, we haven't officially tested it, and until next year we'll put it against a test. But we will be bringing out something head to head against another shoe that maybe won in the category of spiked this year, and we'll see how it matches up. But no spoilers alert. But yeah.
What came into the facility? What is it?
Yeah, show us.
Can you? It's a Nike. It's a Nike shoe.
It's a Nike shoe.
I'm gonna send this shoe to go along with Tony's mustache.
Ooh.
Because it'll go along with it.
I was actually looking for a Nike shirt and Nike hat to wear with my Manly Brook stash here, but it has been so long since Nike sent me any apparel. I'm like, I can't wear this stuff. It's like 6 years old. So.
Is it just me, or has Tony's voice gotten deeper and he talks a little slower with the mustache?
Yeah,
I've
definitely
noticed
slower.
that since we started today.
I like it. I'm thinking about your question, though, Miranda. Another one that I love that golfers love to do is, let's say it's a 6-iron, whatever, par 3, and they just smoke it. I mean, just smoke a 6-iron. And, a buddy playing next to was like, hey, what'd you hit there? He's like, smooth 7. It was a smooth 7. I just smoothed one. It was just a little cutty. I just hit a little cutter with the 7. And
Smootherton.
You just roped the 6-iron best you've ever hit it. No, it's just a little easy one.
Well, that's another one. If you hit a driver, I remember playing in college, and we had a really big hitter in college, I outdrove him by about 3 yards in just one time. And I said, how'd you hit that? And he goes, I hit it okay. I was like, you smoked that, didn't you?
Caught it a little thin.
He goes, nah, just hit it okay. I said, I pretty much missed mine anyway.
I almost whiffed. Well, here's another one. What do you guys call these up in New York, Tony? I don't think you call them Captain's Choice tournaments, but down here they're called Captain's Choice tournaments. Yeah, scrambles. So Captain's Choice tournaments down here, you'll shoot the best. 4 men will go out there, ball out all day, shoot a 13, 14 under, which is still pretty damn good. And you'll get blown out by, you'll see 56s, 55s. I mean, and when you see the dudes walk up there that pick up the trophy, you know damn well they didn't shoot 55. And that happens pretty much.
We shot a 47.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Captain's Choice tournaments are the worst for
Yeah,
that.
isn't that crazy for a game that's built on such like honesty and integrity and doing the right thing and call pennies on yourself? Golfers a bunch of liars, man. So it's crazy.
Well, hopefully none of you are, right?
I
was met with like sheer silence.
I did the hairy thing once where it's like I caught it really good driver and got it by my buddy. He's like, oh man, you got a hold of that. I was like, a little bit off the toe, a little toey.
Chris has played with me. He'll tell you, I'll give you over a 4-day span. I'll give you one good round.
Yeah, and what's really fun is it's not always on the same round. It's like 2 holes here, 4 there. Sometimes you do one of Tony. My favorite round, maybe one of my top 5 ever playing with somebody, is the infamous, even under on the front, and then we went to the back approach. That was Jekyll and Brooksy right there.
Yeah, even on the front, and I think by the time we got through the 10th hole, I was 4 over. So, and it just got worse. Yeah, good times.
Good times. I almost forgot something. Tony, it has been 2 weeks, and I think this is why. We didn't have an episode last week, because you were hoping I'd forget.
Uh-huh.
I got to hear about that bag of dicks story.
Yep. I have it written down over here. Actually.
I think you thought we'd forget, and I want a bag of dicks story.
Tony called me last week.
I forgot all about this.
Tony called me last week. He goes, we can't do the show this week. Why? I can't tell you why. We just can't do the show. Now I know why.
That's why.
One of the great moments in the history of MyGolfSpy, right? We've been known to ruffle a feather or two over the years, and so anyway, I'll leave names out of it. But I got a text one day from just out of the blue from a friend who was previously in the industry, and the text was like, "Did you send so and so a bag of dicks?" I'm like, "What? No." And then, like, before I can even answer, you see the dots coming up, and it's like, "and a glitter bomb." And I'm like, what? So I'm like, did I send somebody a bag of dicks and a glitter bomb? And it no, I didn't. But it turns out a PR guy for one of the golf companies received a package, and when he opened it up, I guess like glitter bomb, and then it had a bag of gummy dicks in it to boot, and I love the expression "eat a bag of dicks." So, I have been known to say that from time to time. But yeah, so anyway, whoever actually sent it, basically signed it "Sincerely T.C." And we believe the intent was to make it look like it came from me. So, yeah, there was a window in time there when I was an accused bag of dick sender, if you will.
Yeah, you were persona non grata.
I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm not sure I believe you. You sent it, didn't you?
So here's the problem. Is that we have 2 scenarios that are possible here. Option number 1, Tony sent him, and he's just flat out lying to us for all these years, right? Which he continues to deny.
Did his mustache twitch? Does he have a giveaway?
For the record, I mostly believe him. Or 2, the real bag of dick sender is still out there somewhere, people. And that's what's scary to me, is that this dude might be out there running around sending bags of dicks to people, and we don't know who it is.
Over time, like, the pieces fell into place, and we have a solid lead and a working theory as to who actually did it. But yeah.
Tony, have you ever received a bag of dicks?
Yeah, Adam sent me one. And you know what personally offended me?
I know what you're gonna say.
I am a connoisseur of fine gummy bears, and they were such crap gummies. Like, you just like if you're gonna make a dick gummy, at least make it a good one.
Here's where I went wrong. I delegated that task to Sam, and Sam got them sent from a discount place from China. So you got some Chinese gummy
You didn't
dicks.
even do it personally? You got your MyGolfSpy assistant to send it?
Yes. That was.
I honestly, I don't know that there's an alternative there. I just can't imagine that a reputable gummy company is out there making the gummy dicks, because you just don't need that market if you make a solid bear.
DTC. It could be Haribo doing like a little DTC action. like
Haribo is a crap gummy. Let's just put it right
I reckon you're gonna get about 6 or 7 bags of dicks shipped to your house in the next 2 weeks.
I got no pride about my gummies, so if they're Albanese, I'll eat them.
I have a question. If it's also a glitter bomb, please tell me that the gummies and the glitter are separate, because there's no way.
Well, they start out separate.
That's kind of what I said. I was like, look, man, I may be a rotten son of a bitch from time to time, but glitter is just like, I've got a 10-year-old daughter. I know what it's like to have glitter all over the damn place. You can't get rid of it.
I'm going to tell you right now, Tony and I have talked way too long in our life together. I don't feel like he has lied to me on any occasion other than this. He sent that bag of dicks.
But do you think he would have been brazen enough to sign at TC?
Oh, no, I'd have put my name on it.
Okay.
Like, there would be, that's the issue. I would have left no doubt.
It's weird because I have all these email and texts that say, hey, from TC.
TC. So here's my question, Chris. How did the person know that Tony signed things TC?
They have to be in your circle.
How I think this came to be is at large-scale golf media events, I tend to congregate with our Canadian friends.
No, there is no way a Canadian sent anyone a bag.
No, but the Canadians all call me TC.
Didn't you change your signature to T after that?
You'll find a good mix. Like I'll
you're swinging it everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tony TC. Tonk from time to time if I typo it. I mean, anything's possible.
Dude, he's taking this to the grave, man. I can tell you that right now. He's taking it to the grave.
If it's not you, Tony, do you have a theory?
Yeah, Tony. Tonk. TC. Whatever you want to call him. Anthony.
The working theory was, given the nature of the relationship at the time and the volatility of the PR person in question, the working theory is that the guy in the adjacent cubicle sent it to him to get a rise out of him.
Interesting. We are so far off topic here.
That's okay. I feel like this might be one of our best topics.
Well, let's stay with Tony for the next topic, which is.
Yeah, Tony, I'm gonna keep the pressure on you here, because we want to talk about we're at the second phase, at least here in Virginia. I'm not sure about New York, of reopening post-pandemic, and most people think that the golf industry is going to not only rebound but exceed where it was before. Are you on that train?
Well, let's title this category real quick.
Okay.
This is the state of golf, as brought to you by Mr. Debbie Downer, Tony Covey.
Also known as TC.
Also known as Tonk.
Okay, Debbie Downer.
Is there a question? What were we talking about?
Because the theory is that because golf is one of the only things that people have been able to do during quarantine and the pandemic, the industry is thinking, okay, these people that we've recruited during the pandemic are going to stick with us. Do you think that that's the case? Or, baseball players that have been swinging a golf club are going to head back to the diamond?
I think there's a couple factors that have led to the uptick in rounds played. As you mentioned, hinted at, right? One, golf is was the only game in town, right? So the reason I hear all the time why people give up their memberships and play less golf or stop playing golf altogether has to do with their kids' sports, specifically traveling sports, and going all over hell's creation for traveling soccer or traveling softball or traveling baseball or whatever it happens to be, lacrosse. A lot of the participation is being driven by the fact that there's nothing else to do. And again, you have things like state parks opening up where people can go hiking, where around here anyway wasn't necessarily an option day one. And you have the warmer weather, which golf technically a warm weather sport for a lot of us, but now there are other things you could do that you couldn't before. So I think that rounds played number is going to start to come down even as golf course kind of gets the open courses creeps closer to 100%. So I think participation is going to drop. I hope, I'm not anti-golf by any means, and I'd like to see everybody do well.
Are you sure?
But no, I mean, I looked at, my course around here was reportedly, I haven't been over there, but, people were telling me, the tee sheet is packed and people are going out and walking. I have friends who live on the course and they're saying, I got guys going by my house 6, 7 o'clock at night. And that's the way it was earlier in the season. I took a peek at the tee sheet for the weekend, and it's essentially wide open after 11:30, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's, and I think that's probably going to be the case as life starts to level out. And the other piece of it is people are starting to go back to work, and so you're going to have that effect too, where I have a job now and I can't just go to the golf course or whatever it may be that you were doing to pass the time, or working more, as I guess you could say.
But you had all of those. Golfers had all those things when it was fully functional. They had their kids, they had day jobs, and they would go play after work or on the weekend. Like it. Don't you think it will just go straight back to where it was?
Yeah, I don't think it's, and I think it might be slightly up. So that's what I'm saying. Like right now, if you look at rounds played, they're up. And typically, I always scream every time we see a rounds played stat as sort of being used to say that golf is healthy, if you will, or that it's on the rise. And it's like rounds played is typically in a normal year, it's a weather stat. Did we have an early spring? Did we have a dry May or June? That's usually the kind of thing that ultimately influences the stats. And now it's like, was there anything else to do versus, hey, there is other stuff to do now. And I think that's where we're going to see probably rounds played go down. That being said, I did talk to, and I've had a couple of conversations with the guys at the golf companies over the last couple of weeks, and there is some optimism now that sales are going to take off. So that's kind of been like,
yeah, but I mean, this is obvious, right? Like, there's no stores open, haven't been. There's going to be stores open, sales are going to go up, right?
Well, I think the concern was that stores would open and nobody was going to buy anyway. So there is some optimism.
If there's any evidence that I drove by TJ Maxx the first weekend it opened and there was a line around the block, so that theory didn't work out.
I think at the end of the day, I get it. The industry wants to promote the industry, right? It wants to feed itself and say that rounds are up and all these things. And right now there is a lot of interest in the game. And the key word there is interest, But will that stick? And the reality is, I think a few different things. The 9-to-5ers that are playing right now, Monday through Friday, that are working from home or not working at all, are able to play golf. When they're able to go back to work, you're going to lose some of that, Monday through Friday play, right? Kids who right now can't play those travel sports, are some of them playing golf. They're going to go back to travel sports, right? And then I think the other thing is too, that when people go back to work, you're going to see, Tony and I were talking about it, right? They're going to get done with their work for the day and then go, well, I'm just going to do tomorrow's work today, because people are so far behind or feel the sense of being behind at work that extracurricular activity of what was I going to do after work today if the life was normal, or on the weekend, which might have been golf, might have been in consideration, now is going to be, I'm just going to keep working. And that doesn't mean everybody, but all these things are going to chip away. And yes, I do think sales will go up.
Compare it to pre-pandemic and post-pandemic?
I'd say if you compare pre versus post, I think sales will be down compared to, before this ever happened, right? I think rounds played, at best it's going to be a wash, and at worst it's going to be down, I don't see any reason for optimism other than the fact that a few new people got exposed to the game maybe, but them sticking with the game, it's going to be hard to tell, because this thing could be going on for a while.
Right. And when things do, whatever, I know John Gordon hates it when people use this word, but it really is like when things go back to whatever normal is at the other side of this, the issues real or imagined with golf, takes too long, it costs too much, it's elitist, all of these things, those things still exist, right? Nothing has changed there. And so fundamentally, if those are the problem, and I don't necessarily always agree that they are, but that's sort of why, it's why golfers believe non-golfers don't play golf. Those things haven't gone away. Those things are still, a part of the culture of the game, if you will. So
no, and I think it too, follow the equipment trends, right? Like we talked earlier this year, like what's going to happen? Our company's going to start liquidating product, the product cycles, how's that's going to work out? Where, Ping was going to have new stuff kind of coming out this summer. That's on hold. Titleist sounds like we're still not 100% sure from everything we've heard, right? Mizuno's still on for this fall with potentially a JPX update.
That's a safe assumption. It will be a JPX.
Well, I think that, yeah. But we're not seeing the fire sale kind of stuff yet that maybe we thought we might see. We're like, hey, buy a new sim driver, get a fairway wood for free. Buy a new, Maverick, get a, fairway wood for free. We're not seeing this liquidation kind of desperate inventory thing just yet from the major OEMs. And I don't know if that's something I'm reading too much into or not enough into, but that type of, kind of warning or really kind of, skittish feeling from the OEMs does not seem to be as desperate now as maybe it was a month ago.
Yeah, I think too, there was probably a little bit of early panic, and I think in talking to some people, like there is a feeling like there will come a point in time, and I don't know if that's July 1st, August, September. I will expect that it's going to be earlier than it would be in a typical year, where they're not going to make up what they didn't sell over the last 2.5 months the rest of the year. Like that's right. The busiest part of the season is plus or minus 15 days pretty much over with. Like Corona came at absolutely the wrong time for as far as sales cycles are concerned. So I don't know the date, but I would be shocked if we didn't see discounting earlier than expected. Now, if Callaway holds off or TaylorMade holds off, if one of those two kind of holds off and is able to either avoid it or really get in towards almost snow season, if you will, till the beginning of ski season, then you have a situation where Titleist can maybe launch their product this year. But if you get in a situation where come July 1st or August 1st, July especially, and TaylorMade and or Callaway goes, that's it, we looked at the numbers, we ran the projections, let's start blowing this stuff out. I don't know how you can launch a full price product in that climate. Yeah. So
Barber came out with a great analogy on this, and he was telling me about these golf companies, for instance, like the Callaways and the TaylorMades, they're based on retail stores. And if the retail stores don't buy them, then you have a lot of product just sitting there. And what do you do? Do you discount it? Do you, what do you do? Because you could lose thousands and thousands of dollars doing that. So if the retail stores like the pro shops and the Dick's Sporting Goods and all those don't buy them and wait and are going to wait for 2021 product, there has to be some kind of discounted product, but I think they're going to wait until that they make a decision.
I think the industry is going to fight the discounts as hard as they can. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think it's going to be, put it this way, some might. I think everybody's waiting and see to see who's going to do it first. But it's a lose-lose, like that's not worked out for the industry before. I don't think they want to go down that road again. But we'll see.
Yeah, because the issue, like you start, and again, I mean, my mailbox with the kind of the various specials or discounts from the retail stores, the online resellers, you're starting to see kind of prices come down on some stuff, but it's last year's stuff. And what that tells me is that while golf companies have gotten more responsible, there's still more prior year inventory in the retail channel than would be optimal, especially again, same situation. If you're not selling new stuff, you're not selling old stuff. So the old stuff that you'd hope to blow out by now is still there. It's already discounted. The new stuff is not selling because nobody's open and to date, nobody's been buying. And that's to a degree accumulating. And so you're going to get into the end of the year or, even into the fall, and you've got a ton of this year's stuff still on shelves, potentially still in some warehouses, and you still got more of last year's stuff than you want.
How much is it? How much do you get a ounce for recycling titanium?
Right? I mean, because there's a drop dead point, right? So we talk about these pressure points. Like, yeah, I agree, Adam. I think they're going to hold on as long as they can, because once you start discounting, right, that's that slippery slope. And then it's like, okay, dominoes fall, who's next, and how much do you discount? Because we're moving, right? We got to get stuff out of there. But the longer you wait, right, the more pressure there is on this side to drive sales at those prices. And I think there's pent up demand right now that we're seeing, right? People haven't been able to play, haven't been able to shop. So like, yeah, I'll pay $499, $529 for that driver. Yeah, I want a new set of irons. And so you got that wave of that kind of core group of golfers that probably would have bought in March, but now they're buying now. When is that going to dry up? Is that going to dry up at the end of June?
Yeah, that is true.
Is that going to dry up at the end of July? Like Tony's saying, like, is it a July one thing? Is it an August one thing?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, man, like, I don't think golf courses are going to close again or the economy is going to shut down. But, there's a second wave of this stuff happening now based on people going back out. And we just started getting back out. So,
barely, yeah.
While the economy might not shut down again because they won't allow it to or whatever, does that not mean that some people just, individually don't take it upon themselves to become more responsible, be proactive about shuttering their own doors and not going out and playing golf or spending money again, So this thing, nothing has changed, right? Nothing has changed, literally, and we're going back out. So to expect this not to surge again is foolish. And if it does,
naive.
Yeah, and if it does, which it is, does that mean more people are going to start withdrawing again on their own and then spend less? We don't know that, right?
Yeah, I wonder. So I have a lot of golf courses that show up in my Facebook feed and people posting pictures of their rounds and after rounds, and I'm starting to see an uptick of photos of, like, hey, post round, let's all get together. Nothing close to social distancing, no masks, any of that. And I'm starting to see more and more of that. And I wonder, like, what does it mean for a golf course if there is a coronavirus outbreak among the membership, right? Because, there is a lot of overlap where you play with a group of guys this week and then two of those guys play with two others, and it's, you could see how the permutations spread pretty quickly. And that I think is also a risk with, kind of the relaxing of things is a feeling that things are better than they actually are.
A false sense of comfort.
Take today, right? One player on the Korn Ferry Tour and 3 caddies tested positive today, right? And so, okay, what do we do with that information? Who gives a shit? Just keep playing, or are they going to start to pull back, or what are they going to do? And that's the first time they tested them. So if you think that that's not going to happen the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, it's going to keep going.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the tours at least have the ability to test before every event. Your local golf course is not going to test everybody in a foursome before they head out. And again, we can talk about the foam on the flag sticks and not touching and staying 6 feet apart on the golf course, but the photo evidence I'm seeing suggests that isn't happening to the degree that it should. And so,
nope.
Well, and the other thing, too, is it's not just golf where it's not happening. So somebody could maybe be social distancing on the course, but that doesn't mean that they didn't go to a restaurant and meet up with a couple of friends and then bring it to the course. So, I mean, there's so many variables that you can't control, and then, it could move from there. That's the problem.
We talk about, there is at least some people predicting a second wave in the fall, and whether or not that shuts things down entirely. Hopefully not. Hopefully it doesn't happen at all. But I would think that the golf companies are looking at that too and saying, hey, what happens if we don't discount now when we actually have an opportunity to move some product, and we get hit with a second wave and retailers close again, and now we're sitting on all this inventory, and there's no chance to unload it by the time the new stuff's supposed to arrive. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, Bob PXG seemed to be the only one that really moved on the first wave, right? And it seems to have worked for him. That's a great point, Tony. I think the prediction seems pretty strong that a second wave is probably going to happen, right? So it might be somebody in their best interest to start discounting now. It's a tough problem to solve, right? Because they have channels in place to kind of handle these situations prior to the pandemic, meaning, like the Rock Bottoms of the world and the Hurricane Golfs and however else you get rid of that excess product, right? There are all these different markets to unload some of that stuff, but this is kind of unprecedented, and they don't really have a channel to get rid of pandemic golf equipment. So,
Well, here's a question, though. If they have so much excess 2020 product available to consumers, does it then start to affect the sales of the 2021 products? Or do consumers just skip over 2020 altogether and go straight to 2021?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's going to be depending on the consumer and the retail stores, because they might just go straight to 2021.
Yeah, that's why it's not a 2020 problem only. Like Tony's saying, it's a 2019 problem, 2020 problem, and a 2021 problem.
But Chris, put yourself in the position of being a retail store owner, right? And they come to you, and you're at the end of a season, and they come to you and say, hey, here it is. Now we're ready to rock and roll. And you go, what is your decision going to be as the owner of the business that has to sell this equipment? Because do you want to take on all that risk too?
Because you're pre-booking stuff for 2021, right? There's all the incentives based on how much you pre-book, and certainly that helps, and you want to be able to do that. But I would have to think at this point in time, they're also starting to rewrite some of those rules because of this, saying, well, hang on a second here. I can't afford to get stuck with this. I need some kind of an out. I need some type of a pandemic out clause, in this. So I think what we're going to see is rewriting some of the rules around retail channels and potentially seeing companies do more DTC stuff where, I can't go to every five, all these different retailers and say, hey, drop this by $4, drop this by $20, whatever. All right, I'm selling, Epic Sub-Zeros from 2019 at $129 a piece till they're gone. And I can sell that through the site, right? Because I don't have to check with anybody.
So you're saying companies that aren't traditionally direct to consumer could create some sort of like an excess product channel that goes straight to consumers?
Yeah, they can. You have to be careful. You have all these relationships to manage, right? If you totally undercut your retail channels, that tends to not be a great thing, particularly if you're trying to build those relationships moving forward. It is generally frowned upon. But if it's something that could... if there's a way they could work together on it and somehow use that channel together to do that, possibly. But man, if I'm that retail store owner, don't stick me with that much inventory. I can't commit to that right now. If you want to sell your product in my store, which I want you to, and I want to be able to do that, I can't afford to take on that much risk. So if I'm going to take on that risk up front, what do you have different now that's going to help me balance that out? Because credits towards product the next year, that's just going to, pass the buck. It's not going to actually help me where I need to be helped. And so
floor space, shelf space, whatever you want to call it, is not an infinite resource either. So if you already have a bunch of, or some amount of 2019, and you've got a bunch of 2020 gear, and you haven't unloaded that, where do you put the 2021, right?
You have to do what we had to do. We had to get a storage unit.
It's like, we're just going to put one of everything out here, and as soon as we're just run and grab another one. And
well, that's where you blow it out online through that DTC channel. They ship it from whatever that retail location is. You get a cut of it, they get a cut of it, and basically you become a warehouse of the virtual retail store or something. I don't know.
Adams Golf did that like way back when. I can't remember what that program was called, but it was pretty ahead of its time. They could bring back something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll all go to the same place that the T-shirts for the Super Bowl losers go, and we just won't know.
That goes to the Bahamas, man.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so then in about 15 years, there's going to be a phenomenal increase of awesome Bohemian golf stars on the PGA Tour. I'm calling it now.
Could be.
Well, we also like to keep you updated on everything that's coming out of the testing facility, and this week we released the best spike shoes of 2020, so let's take a look at those. In the top spot, it's the Adidas Tour 360 XT. These have great arch support, and Boost technology makes them extra comfortable, but if you're buying, do keep in mind that they tend to run about a half size too big. In number 2 is the Under Armour's Hover Drive GXT. The hovers are made with Gore-Tex, so they're easy to clean, and they are stylish, but you don't have too many color options to choose from. Number 3 are the Spieth 4s, also made by Under Armour. They've got the Jordan Spieth stamp of approval and are the most stable shoes in 2020, and this year's updates make a big difference from previous year's models. Number 4 on the 2020 list, another Adidas shoe, this time the Tour 360 XT-PK. Now these are cool because they pull on like a sock, which makes them breathable and lightweight, but be careful if you're playing in wet and muddy conditions. Rounding out the top 5, the Under Armour Hover Match Play. These have rotational resistance spikes that keep you grounded and have a comfortable sole cushion. So take a look at MyGolfSpy.com to see the full breakdown. But those are the top 5 in spike shoes for 2020. Chris, MyTubSpy this week, you're talking about or asking about graphite shafts, right?
Yeah, that was one of the questions.
Any good responses?
People, it's interesting. It almost doesn't matter what the topic is, right? People that are resistant to certain types of change are always resistant to that change. People that want to be naysayers of different technology find kind of the same excuses. Why not to upgrade to HD TV? Why not to, get a programmable thermostat? I don't know. Why not get a Ring doorbell? Same kind of things you see with.
Oh, I don't like those things.
Yep. Well, see here.
I don't want to go ring people's doorbells anymore because I'm like, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
I don't like them.
So anyway, what we're going to explore. Tony and I have a plan here. We got some stuff we're going to look at in the graphite iron shaft space because it's a compelling topic. It is an area of change. I mean, you look however many years ago, right? There used to be, everybody played steel shafts in their metal woods and their drivers and 3-woods, and other than Jimmy Walker doing it, I guess today at Colonial or whatever, yeah, making a comeback. That pretty much everybody. It took time to transition to graphite in drivers, etc., because it was demonstrably better across the board. We have not seen the same thing in irons, and it's a question we're asking: why? Why not? Why have we not seen this on tour? Why are we not seeing it with amateurs?
I don't know. I just think it's as simple as math, right? It's math, and yes, I think graphite shafts are getting better for irons, and they're going to continue to get better. But at the end of the day, 8 versus 1, right? And if you're going to have really good graphite shafts and you have 8 clubs in your set versus 1 driver shaft and going from a TT Light or a Dynamic Gold or a X1 Honey, to a whatever Graphalloy Pro Light 35 that still costs $35. Yeah, I can dig that. But when it comes to replacing a whole iron set, Harry has the luxury, I doubt Harry had to pay for those shafts, but everybody else does. And 8 times $50, is a $400 upgrade to the set of irons that you already had to pay $800 for.
You can't get a set of irons for $800 anymore, barely. So I mean, yeah,
you can.
But I mean, you're probably the baseline for a guy who's at that level who's going to think about a premium graphite offering is probably $1,200 even. So you're almost double your money to get to.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple math, and you'd have to really show some proof. Right now, Fuji and whoever can talk all they want about, hey, it's gotten better. And until some pros play it in their bags and until some type of study or test is done to show that it's definitely better than the lightweight steel out there or heavy, the standard steel that's out there, I don't think anything's going to change.
That's the question. And what are the hurdles that part of the industry faces? Because right, when you talk to the shaft manufacturers, obviously they're all about it. They're very excited about it because
it's an opportunity.
Yeah, to sell some shafts, grow their business.
I mean, with my situation, right, with the elbow being as suspect as it is, I'm like, can I get the same level of?
I'm sorry, I laughed at your elbow because the only thing I thought about was your device.
It's over here.
Not your poor elbow.
But if I could get the same level of performance and supposedly reduce vibration and eliminate elbow pain or reduce it, if that's a real thing, then yeah, for that leveling, if it allows me to play, that's huge, right? But that's, again, who knows?
That's you.
If it allows me to stay active on the golf course.
But that's you. That's not the masses of golfers going out to go, hey, I'm really excited. I got some money to burn. It's burning a hole in my pocket. I'm going to the golf store today. Going to a golf store. Half the people there don't even know how to push graphite versus steel anyway. They're just watching you walk around the store, So you've got to get somebody that can actually demonstrate an advantage to trying this versus that. And oh, by the way, it's worth that extra $400, buddy. So buy those graphites. That ain't happening.
Right, or it's got to become I think it's got to get to the point where it's more of a cost neutral decision, right? Where it's A or B. And right now, are we there? No, absolutely. We also know that graphite shafts tend to be arguably the highest margin product in the entire industry. And so it may be some exploring around, okay, how inexpensively can you actually make graphite iron shafts if you wanted to go?
Here's how you do it. You do a made for, and it's cheap.
UST is able to produce graphite shafts for irons at a price that Callaway can put in their irons for no upcharge. So, there is the potential to do that, but again, that's the difference. When it is a stock option, you're doing a volume you don't do in the aftermarket, particularly in an iron.
I still think you've got to get over that big perception hump too. And right now, that is a major hump, right? So there's got to be, point of sale stuff. There's got to be POP displays that educate people, and that's going to take time because until people change their mind, people think graphite is whippy. You get a
Well, the manufacturers kind of did it to themselves, right?
Exactly.
Where they put these low cost, apologies in advance, crappy graphite shafts in some of these.
Who are you
stock
apologizing
OEM,
to?
to
Ouch,
nobody.
my ears.
To the poor bastards who bought the crappy graphite shafts, I guess really is probably who we should apologize to. But it's sort of like, hey, we made this low cost, comparably low quality product that has become the thing that most golfers associate with graphite shafts. And so sort of how do you separate yourself from the mess that you made is kind of the challenge.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy, not going to be overnight. I think that's where the performance part comes in, and we'll see in really, if we talk about tour validation stuff, I think you really need somebody not like a Bryson. Because he's such an outlier of outliers. The guy can do anything, kind of excuse it as like, he gets credit for gaining 20 pounds during COVID. Well, congratulations. It ain't that hard. Come on. But he's such an outlier of outliers, right? Like he's 4 or 5 standard deviations away from the mean.
Well, not only that, but he's somebody that tries some wacky stuff and is looked at as kind of wacky by some people. It would need to be a Tiger Woods type that has always taken equipment so serious, and now he's put this new shaft in that's graphite, and all of a sudden he goes out and wins 3 tournaments in a row. That might turn the tide. But
the other one that I could see happening is a younger group, right? So you have these older players. They've grown up with steel. They've played dynamic gold, whatever, forever, and that's hard to change, even if there is a performance difference to it. If you can get some Korn Ferry players, younger guys, college, just starting out that don't have that built in.
Well, it depends. Like if they are the ones that play in the Korn Ferry and then
like
make
Harry,
it onto
maybe.
Well, no, but if they make it on the Korn Ferry and then make it onto the PGA Tour, then they start getting some traction on the PGA Tour, like a Justin Thomas. If he came through those ranks through the Korn Ferry, I think you might see the needle move just a little bit more. But I agree with Adam. I think it needs a big person in the industry that takes equipment seriously for it to change.
People forget that the average golfer isn't the person that's a tester at MyGolfSpy, isn't the person that's reading MyGolfSpy hardly. It's the person that is at the municipal course, and literally you go, what do you know about graphite shafts? And a few different words are going to come out, For old people, they're whippy. They're for people that, are on stay active, therapy or something like that.
I would have said they're made of graphite.
I actually had a back and forth the last time we talked about graphite in irons. One of my R&D contacts texted me and he was like,
"Here we go.
They're like, never gonna." He's like, "It's just not gonna happen." And I said, "Why aren't they more prevalent on a tour?" He's like, "Because the reps don't want to deal with them. It's just one more thing and just kind of a pain in the ass." You're not going to show a tour guy any indisputable performance boost, right? At that level, it's always going to be fractional, marginal, whatever you want to call it. And so it's just easy for the guys in the vans to go, you know what, we've got drawers and drawers full of shafts that work just fine. We don't need to sort of introduce another variable and bring this graphite stuff onto the van. So that's, again, there's always, with the tour, there's always a political element that in play here, and that certainly appears to be part of the issue here as well.
You know what they need to bring back, Tony, to fix it all? The Harrison Shotmaker. The Shotmaker.
Harrison Shotmaker.
Yeah, that was a interesting product.
You can still get those.
Can you?
I don't know. I've got a couple of them laying around here. I should put one back.
It's one of my favorite shafts of all time. The Harrison Striper J.
Chris, most important question. What flavor was the ice cream this week?
Ooh, we had some caramel toffee crunch. That was flavor 1. And flavor 2, Tom over at ESPN recommended the malted moo shake. Tom's onto something there.
Is that a Ben & Jerry's flavor or what?
No, we're still on Tillamook. We'll probably try a couple 2 different ones this next week.
I got an ice cream story for you.
Ooh,
Go for it.
So I had my wife pick up a pint of Ben & Jerry's when she went out last time, and she took on her own volition, bought a box of sugar cones. So last night I'm just down in the kitchen. I'm like, I'm making myself an ice cream cone, no big deal. Then I went upstairs and just laid down in the bed next to her with my ice cream cone, and she's like, no. It's like talking to me like I just peed on the floor. Apparently, so I don't know what the rules are in your house, but yeah, we apparently have a strict rule about ice cream in the bed, which, if you're asking me, I feel is kind of limiting, but
Harry had to put a trash can next to his bed so that he could throw his Kit Kat wrappers away while he eats his chocolate. I can find Harry based on the trail of chocolate and popsicle wrappers. My
issue is the ice cream will never last long enough to make it upstairs to the bed. So I keep it outside by the hot tub. That's my place is ice cream in the hot tub.
I'll tell you what, I got a preview of some MyTubSpy. Whew. They're good this week.
Yeah, I sent Adam some uncut edition.
It was definitely a prototype.
Definitely rough around the edges a little bit on some parts. But there might be a riffraff quote or 2 up there.
Well, we got a comment last week that asked why we don't say "we out" anymore, and it's usually because we end up on these rabbit holes like this, and so we forget to say it. So,
Chris, before she says "we out," I saw you in the hot tub this week, and I'm seeing you on a weekly basis in the hot tub now, which is odd. But is the ice cream that you're eating diet ice cream? Because you seem to be losing weight.
hey,
I've lost 15 pounds in COVID. I don't know why.
Good for you. Oh,
and it ain't on purpose.
Really?
I don't know. I think I got a tapeworm. I think I got something to eat something because I'm not eating any differently. That's not true. I'm probably eating maybe a little bit more ice cream.
How many teeth do you have that's actually yours still?
Teeth?
Yeah.
All of them. Yeah.
You have no cavities?
Well, no, there's some stuff. There's some stuff filled in there. But
There's some craters in there.
I haven't done a full inventory recently. Talk about gap analysis, man. Do some gap analysis in my mouth.
All right, on that note.
and we out.
That's a good ending.